Yeah, welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. And here we are. If you are a sports fan in America, if you are a football fan, this is the greatest day that you can ask for. It is Super Sunday. So I guess it's the greatest day, but in a way it's sad too, because this is the last football game of the 2023 season. But it's Super Sunday. We're going to get the biggest game, and we're going to see again that the NFL is king, right? Anyway, we're going to talk the Super Bowl, but before we get to that, if you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, you know what to do. Open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast. If you're enjoying the comment, please, if you're enjoying the content, sorry, please give us a like, give us that 5-star review, and drop us a comment. We love to see those. We love to hear those. We try to get back to them as best we can. Yeah, that we really appreciate it. We're up over 1,000 subscribers now, so let's keep sharing, let's keep listening, let's keep clicking that button and all that good stuff. All right, we're gonna get that the live call-in shows up and running real soon here, so can't wait to do that. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and talk Super Bowl 58. So unless you're living under a rock, you know what it is. It is the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers for all the marbles later today. Um, this is probably a nearly perfect matchup if you really want to ask about it. It's got the storylines, it's got the physical matchups on the field, it's got everything you could ask for. Two of the best teams in the game. One could argue the two best teams in the game. Kansas City, most of the year, was not thought to be one of the best teams in the game because of what we saw, that they didn't look like Kansas City has looked in previous years. But the fact that big game Steve Spagnuolo has this defense playing out of this world, I think number 2 defense in the league this year, number 2 scoring defense, and just one of the top defenses overall. He has done a masterful job of controlling opposition offenses. Pat Mahomes hasn't looked quite the same this year. The receivers have not looked quite the same this year. It's not the same high-flying Chiefs offense, but guess what? They found a way. They've gotten it done. This is the first time Mahomes has ever played road playoff games, and he won 2 road playoff games to get here. So he's just cementing his position as clearly the best football player in the game today, and quickly rising up those ranks of the all-time great quarterbacks. But today, if he can win the Super Bowl, this would be his third in 6 years as a starter, and this would be another opportunity for him to show his greatness and just continue that rise. On the flip side, you've got Kyle Shanahan, who just literally has football in his blood, son of former 2-time head coach champion Mike Shanahan, and now head coach of one of the greatest franchises in the NFL, San Francisco 49ers. And he's been in this game before, and he hasn't had an opportunity to win yet, not as a coordinator, not as a head coach. He's blown big leads both times, and this year is an opportunity for him to get right. You obviously have Brock Purdy, who is Mr. Irrelevant, last guy taken in the draft 2 years ago, and now he is starting in the Super Bowl. And MVP candidate for most of this season, has some of the best numbers in the league, but people still doubt him. They say it's all about the scheme. They say it's all about the weapons. They say it's all about the team that he's on. And of course, football being the ultimate team game, everybody needs all those things. But Brock Purdy, excuse me, he's not just a bus rider. He's a bus driver, and we'll talk about that shortly. But yeah, the storylines abound. I mean, we wonder. Obviously, you got the Taylor Swift thing. You wonder, Travis Kelce has hinted at retirement. Is he going to retire if the Chiefs win this game? Or will he and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes gear up and try to be the first team in NFL history to three-peat? We know how hard it is to win in the NFL. That would be absolutely insane. Yeah, you wonder. You ask yourself, is it Kyle Shanahan's time? Is it his time? And is it time for the 49ers to be back on top of the NFL mountain? They haven't won a championship since 1994. Now, the difference between them and the Cowboys is they've been in real contention. They played in numerous NFC championship games. They've been to a few Super Bowls since then. So, that's not exactly an apples to apples comparison, but at the end of the day, they have not won it all since 1994 when Steve Young was hoisting that trophy. So you got tons of storylines. Is it time for Brock Purdy to finally step up and show he's the guy? And even if he shows he's the guy, will people believe in him as a Super Bowl champion? Or will they say, well, it's just a function of everything that was around him? Christian McCaffrey, what's he going to do in this game? He's a newly minted Offensive Player of the Year in the NFL. Will he have an opportunity to really show out and show his greatness and pick up a Super Bowl MVP? There's just so much going on. So yeah, let's get into it a little bit. So you're looking at we talked a little bit about it. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. And what gets me, this guy has a record as a starter of 17-4. So we know he's a winner. He's got a completion percentage of 68.7%, 69% in his 2 years. Now, again, I don't always laud completion percentage in the modern era. There are a lot of short throws in the modern game. Again, you can't really hit quarterbacks the way you used to. You can't hit receivers the way you used to. The league has done an outstanding job of opening up the game for the offenses. They've really handcuffed defenses in the NFL. That's just a fact. However, you look at a guy like Brock Purdy, and they talk about, they being the mainstream sports media, they say how Brock Purdy dumps it off to those weapons and they constantly tout the yards after catch. And I'm not sure why they keep pushing this narrative, because it's 100% false. And the reason I say it's 100% false, I'm sitting here as I'm talking to you and I'm looking at Pro Football Reference. And the thing is, these mainstream media companies have the exact same access to information that I do, if not more. They have researchers and statisticians and all that. Great. So the narrative is that Brock Purdy dumps it off and his elite weapons, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, all these guys get a ton of yards after catch. Well, that's interesting because Brock Purdy, excuse me. Again, I mentioned he had 69.4% completion percentage this year. And that actually flies in the face of the narrative and flies in the face of the way that a lot of modern quarterbacks get high completion percentage numbers. And why is that? Because his average yards per attempt led the league this season at 9.6 yards per attempt. So that's not behind the line stuff. That's not a ton of screens. That's not a ton of passes to the flat. And McCaffrey and those guys take it all the way. But even if you disagree with that, that's fine, because now we go to air yards per attempt, which is how far the ball travels in the air per each attempt. And that is 9.9 yards, air yards per attempt. And that is, right, that right there leads the league once again, 9.9, almost 10 air yards per attempt. So Kyle Shanahan and his coaching staff have a lot of trust in Brock Purdy, and they are pushing the football down the field, allowing him to push the football down the field. So we keep hearing this, oh, those weapons, he dumps it off, and those guys, you got to tackle them because they get a ton of yards after catch, and they do get a lot of yards after catch. Again, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle. There's no doubt about that. But the fact is, Brock Purdy is going down the field with it before they even catch it, to an amount that leads the league. So why do we keep pushing this false narrative that it's all about what those guys do after they catch the ball? We got to stop this when the information is readily available. We got to stop this. So Brock Purdy was among the league leaders in passing yards, 4,280, among the league leaders in touchdowns, 31, league leader in touchdown percentage at 7. We talked about the air yards per attempt, led the league. We talked about yards per attempt, led the league. So led the league in quarterback rating, 113, led the league in QBR, 72.7. All these numbers show that Brock Purdy is not just a game manager. Now, in some of the bigger games, for instance, the Christmas night game against the Baltimore Ravens, who at the time were thought to be the best team in the league, and they were an outstanding team this year. In that game, did Brock Purdy play well? No. And the fact is, Brock Purdy is a guy who needs to play well today in the Super Bowl and not let this game overwhelm him. And believe me, Steve Spagnuolo, he's going to bring pressure. He's going to disguise. He's going to do probably a lot of things Purdy maybe hasn't seen before. And, we talked about Steve Spagnuolo as being one of the best big game defensive coaches in the history of the NFL. And so Purdy needs to be well prepared for that. Whether it's Purdy or Kyle Shanahan or the rest of that offensive staff, they've had 2 weeks to get ready for this thing because they know that they're going to get some different looks from Spags. Anyway, we gotta stop this false narrative. And so I'm going to stop beating that drum, but it is crazy how mainstream sports media does that. Anyway, Christian McCaffrey, this is a guy who needs to have a big game. He needs to have a big game catching the ball. He needs to have a big game running the ball. And this is an opportunity where the 49ers can have success in terms of running the football. I believe they were the They were the third ranked total offense, and they were the third ranked rushing offense. So if they do what they do, and they were the fourth ranked passing offense. So great offense overall. If they do what they do and get that rushing game cranked up, which is very possible because even though Spagnuolo is an outstanding defensive coordinator, especially in big games, the Kansas City Chiefs have not done a great job stopping the run this year. I think they were 23rd overall against the run. So they really need to find a way to shore that up. Um, Even if you use some delays and some draws, because you know Chris Jones is going to do a ton of work in getting up the field. So maybe that would be perfect to work some delays. Now, San Francisco's not a team, as I recollect, that particularly does a whole ton of that, but maybe that's a wrinkle you'd like to throw in. And of course, you have to watch out for Christian McCaffrey in the passing game, whether it is the screen game or whether it's just letting him get the ball in space. But the funny thing is, McCaffrey is a lot tougher running between the tackles than people seem to think. So this is a guy that, you know, he did lead the league in rushing, I think over 1,400 yards this season. He can really go out there. He can run hard and he can do it. Yeah, 1,459 rushing yards, 5.4 yards per attempt, and 14 touchdowns on the ground this year. So 14 touchdowns total, I believe. Anyway, that this is a guy that he can really get it done. And so you want to make it a point of emphasis to stop him. But then the thing is, like we talked about, there's so many weapons on this team. There's Ayuk, there's Deebo Samuels, who you can use in a variety of ways. You can use him on reverses, you can use him downfield, you can use him across the middle. And of course, George Kittle, an elite blocking and receiving tight end. Brandon Ayuk. It's like, pick your poison. What are you going to do? Spags definitely has his job cut out for him, but again, he's a guy who can handle it and has done tremendous things in these big games. Kyle Shanahan, coming into this playoff run, I was concerned about him because I think coming into this playoff run, he was like 0-37 when entering the fourth quarter down by 7 points or more. I believe that was the stat. And this is a guy who hadn't shown the fortitude and the ability to adjust and coach his way out of late game deficits. And now twice in a row, and a big part of that due to Brock Purdy making some unexpected plays with his legs and making big throws in key situations. He's been able to do that. He being Kyle Shanahan, coach his way out of these deficits twice and win games that they should have lost. Now, most people would say they probably got a little bit of help from the Lions, but that's a different story. And so Kyle Shanahan has he's shown, in my estimation, a different level of mettle this year, a different level of mental toughness in terms of bringing his team back from the brink. And so you wonder, can he do that one more time? Because if you get down against these Chiefs, I don't know if you're going to be able to do that. Andy Reid is going to continue to be aggressive, and we continue to talk about Steve Spagnuolo. So that's the key. On the flip side, the Chiefs. Andy Reid, he is stamping himself. He's easily going to Canton. We know that. But he's stamping himself as one of the best coaches of all time, clearly one of the best offensive minds of all time. And he's just doing incredible things. This was a team that didn't have a lot of elite weapons on the outside, but they kept working at it. Obviously, they've got Patrick Mahomes, the best player in the game right now. And they kept working at it. Ended up being, I think, the number 6 total offense in the league this year, even though they're not the high-flying Chiefs that we've seen in the past. They have been doing a really good job. And Patrick Mahomes, I think this is interesting. He's done a great job of taking what the defense is giving him, not forcing it, not trying to do things that this team and this receiving core is not capable of doing in terms of, you know, continually pushing it downfield and trying to make the big home run plays. He's doing what his defense is allowing him to do in terms of the defense controlling the game. And so this is where it's interesting because they talk about game manager and they use the term as if it's such a bad thing. But at the end of the day, that's exactly what Patrick Mahomes has been doing for most of the season. Now, when you're a superstar with his ability and his skill and his moxie and his toughness mentally and physically, you can make the big plays where they need to be made. Absolutely. Between him and Kelsey, you know that they're going to make big plays. Now, that said, Pat Mahomes has also been doing a tremendous job in not pushing too hard and letting the game come to him. And I expect him to continue to do that this game, against one of the best defensive teams in the league in the 49ers. So this is going to be amazing. You've got Travis Kelce, who we talked about briefly at the beginning, who hinted at retirement. And now we know that he is one of the best defensive players in the game. We know, I'm sorry, not the best defensive players in the game. He's one of the best offensive players of all time. He's arguably the best tight end who's ever played, probably the best receiving tight end. If you ask me who's the best tight end who ever played, I'm probably going with Gronk because I love the fact that Gronk is, I think he's a better red zone threat due to his size and strength. Um, and I also think that he's a superior blocker. I don't want a tight end who's not an elite blocker. Now, what Travis Kelce can do in the receiving game kind of negates all that, but I think Gronk is more complete. So if you ask me, he would be my best tight end of all time. I think we can't leave um, Gonzalez out of that. Former Kansas City Chief as well, and Atlanta Falcon, Tony Gonzalez. I think he had most of the tight end receiving records, and Kelce, if he hasn't broken most of them, he will. And so the top three are going to be Gonzo, Gronk, and Travis Kelce, not in that order. But overall, I go with Gronk. But anyway, I digress. The point is, Travis Kelce is a guy. He's the ultimate safety blanket for Patrick Mahomes. When Patrick Mahomes needs a way out, he needs to get bailed out. There is Kelce making the play. And it's crazy because there's no one guy who really can guard him. So and he's so adept at finding holes in the zone to just kind of he'll be on one route, he'll break it off, find a way, get free, and just make the catch. And he and Mahomes just have such a connection together. They've been together for a long time, and they've made play after play after play after play in regular season, in big games, and they just find a way to get it done. So controlling Kelce is going to be such a key. Isaiah Pacheco, running back for the Chiefs, just runs super, super hard. He's a tough guy in between the tackles, but the Niners have one of the best run defenses in the league. So we're going to see what they can do. We're going to see if Nick Bosa, he's having his opportunity to be a game wrecker. Can he be that? Can he get after Patrick Mahomes? It's, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, if you ask me to sit down and pick this game, it's so hard to pick against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes because they've been here so many times. They've done it. They've upset the doubters all postseason long. But I guess this may be the third week in a row that I pick against them. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to pick a score, but I'm going to go ahead and pick the 49ers because I just think that Shanahan is different now. And I think this is his time. I just think it's time. And I think Brock Purdy doesn't get enough credit for the type of player that he is. I think McCaffrey is going to go off. And I think that the 49ers are finally going to get it done. I think Kyle Shanahan and his team are going to get to the top of the hill. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the 49ers here. I think it's their time. I think they're going to win this Super Bowl. And I think it's going to be a great game. So what I want to know from you, who do you think wins this game? Who have you got? What am I seeing wrong here? What are your thoughts? Leave it in the comment section. Can't wait to get back to you. And I'm out. Peace.